My name is Helen Parker. The night I found my daughter and grandson sleeping on the street, everything I believed shattered for 5 years. Michael Adams fooled us all. The truth was far more terrifying than I imagined. What came next would change our lives forever. Before we begin, please like this video, subscribe, and hit that bell icon. The cold bit through my coat that winter evening as I walked home from church, my breath forming small clouds in the darkness. I'd lit candles for my family, as I did every Thursday, a ritual that had become both comfort and punishment since Robert died. The streets were empty, shops closed, the world settling into that peculiar silence that comes just before midnight. Then I saw them, 2 shapes huddled against the brick wall of Morrison's Market, underneath the broken awning that never kept out rain. A threadbare blanket covered what looked like a woman and a child. I'd passed homeless people before. We all had, usually with a mumbled prayer and quickened steps. But something stopped me that night. Something I can't explain. Even now, my feet moved without permission, carrying me closer. The woman's face was turned away, her arm wrapped protectively around a small boy who couldn't have been more than 5. His tiny sneakers had holes in them when I knelt down. The cold concrete bit through my stockings. "Miss, are you all right?" She stirred slowly as if waking from the dead, and when she turned her face toward the streetlight, the ground disappeared beneath me. It was Sarah, my daughter, my baby girl. The world tilted. Sounds became muffled. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't reconcile the woman before me. Gaunt, hollow-eyed, wrapped in rags, with the radiant bride who'd left for Paris 5 years ago on the arm of the perfect man. "Sarah," my voice cracked. "Oh God, Sarah, is that you?" Her eyes opened fully then, brown eyes that I'd known since the moment she was born, and they filled with tears that spilled over immediately. "Mom," the word came out broken. "I didn't want you to see me like this." The little boy stirred, and my heart shattered completely. Oliver, my grandson, the child I'd only seen in carefully staged photos, always smiling, always clean, always happy in the life Michael's letters described. But here he was, sleeping in the street. I didn't ask questions, couldn't have formed words if I tried. I simply pulled Sarah to her feet, felt how light she was, how her bones jutted through the thin jacket. I scooped Oliver into my arms. He barely stirred, so deeply exhausted, and led them both home. The walk was a blur. My hands shook as I unlocked the door, as I ran a bath, as I heated soup that Sarah ate mechanically, tears running silently down her face. I put them in my own bed, tucked blankets around bodies that shivered even in the warmth, and kissed Sarah's forehead the way I had when she was small. Then I went to the living room and sat in Robert's old chair. Staring at nothing on the mantel were photos from Sarah's wedding. Michael in his expensive suit, arm around my daughter, that charming smile I'd trusted so completely. The images from Paris they'd sent, cafes and museums, Sarah laughing, Oliver on a carousel. All lies. My chest ached with a pain I hadn't felt since they'd lowered Robert into the ground. But this was different. This was the agony of realization, of 5 years of believing, of accepting silence when my mother's heart had whispered that something was wrong. I'd failed her. The wedding photos seemed to mock me in the dim light. The grandfather clock ticked away the hours. I didn't sleep. I couldn't, because I knew that when morning came, Sarah would have to tell me everything, and I wasn't sure I was strong enough to hear it, but I would be. I had to be, because my daughter had come home. And whatever had happened in those 5 years, whatever hell Michael Adams had put her through, it ended now. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, my family slept under my roof for the first time in years. And I made a promise to the silence, to Robert's memory, to God himself. I would protect them no matter what it cost. Morning light filtered through the kitchen curtains as I set the table with shaking hands. Coffee, toast, eggs, normal things for an abnormal day. Sarah emerged from the hallway like a ghost, her wet hair clinging to pale cheeks. She'd showered, put on my old robe, but still looked impossibly fragile. Oliver remained asleep, exhausted beyond what any child should know. We sat across from each other, the table suddenly vast. "Mom, I need to tell you everything." Her voice was barely above a whisper. I reached for her hand. It was ice cold. "I'm listening, sweetheart." The words came slowly at first, then faster, like a dam breaking. Paris had been magical for exactly 3 months. Michael was attentive, loving, everything she'd believed he was. Then gradually, he changed. It started with comments about her clothes. Too revealing, too frumpy, never right. Then about her friends from the language classes. "You don't need them, you have me." The isolation was surgical, precise. When she got pregnant with Oliver, Michael's mask slipped further. He stopped coming home most nights. When he did, he was cold, distant, treating her like an inconvenience. "I thought it was the stress of his job," Sarah said, tears sliding down her face. "I made excuses for him, Mom, just like you taught me. Stand by your husband." "Marriage is work." My throat burned. Had I taught her that? To accept cruelty as commitment? The apartment Michael kept her in wasn't the charming Parisian flat from the photos. Those pictures were taken at his other place. The real one, in the 8th arrondissement where he lived his actual life. Sarah's prison was a cramped studio in the suburbs, peeling wallpaper and broken heating. He controlled everything, my passport, my phone, the money. She looked at her hands. I had nothing. I was nothing when Oliver was born. Things deteriorated completely. Michael visited maybe twice a month, leaving cash that barely covered food. Sarah tried working secretly, cleaning houses she found through a community board, hiding the money in Oliver's diaper bag. That's when she met Roberto, a Mexican immigrant who cleaned offices at night. Roberto noticed the young American woman who brought her toddler to work because she had no childcare. He started leaving food, bread, fruit, sometimes toys for Oliver. One night, Sarah came home to find Michael going through her things. He'd found the hidden money. "He didn't hit me," she said quietly. "He was too smart for that. He just looked at me with these empty eyes and said, 'You think you can leave? You're nothing without me. You'd be on the street in a day.'" She believed him until she found the photos on his phone. Michael with a beautiful French woman, Isabel. Restaurants, hotels, beaches, a whole life. While Sarah rationed food and Oliver's shoes fell apart. When she confronted him, he laughed, actually laughed. "What are you going to do about it?" he'd said. "You have no papers, no money, no rights here. You're trapped, Sarah. Accept it." But Roberto had connections, people who helped people disappear. He scraped together money, called in favors, got her and Oliver on a cargo flight to New York using borrowed documents. "I ran, Mom, in the middle of the night, one bag, terrified he'd catch us." Her hands trembled around her coffee cup. "But when I got here, I realized I had nothing, no ID, no way to prove who I was. I was scared to come to you, scared you'd be disappointed, scared Michael would find out and hurt you. So she'd survived in shelters, sleeping in her car until it was repossessed, finally ending up on that street corner where God or fate or Robert's ghost had guided my feet. I failed you," Sarah whispered. "I failed Oliver. I should have been stronger." I stood, pulled her into my arms, felt her sob against my shoulder. "No, he failed you. He lied to both of us, but you survived. Baby, you got out, you saved your son." We stood there as the coffee grew cold, as the sun climbed higher, as Oliver's small footsteps padded into the kitchen. "Mama, Grandma?" His voice was uncertain. "Sweet." Sarah wiped her eyes, turned to him with a smile that broke my heart. "We're okay, sweetheart. We're finally okay." But even as I said it, as I made Oliver breakfast and watched Sarah hold him close, a cold fear settled in my stomach. Michael Adams had spent 5 years building a perfect lie. Men like that didn't just let go. The question wasn't if he'd come for them. The question was when, the following morning. I made a decision. I went to my bedroom closet and pulled out the wooden box Robert had given me on our 20th anniversary. Inside lay my mother's pearl necklace, my wedding bands, matching earrings, and a small diamond bracelet, treasures I'd planned to leave Sarah someday. Someday was now, at Rosenberg's jewelry downtown. Mr. Rosenberg examined each piece with his jeweler's loupe, his weathered hands gentle. "Beautiful pieces, Helen. You sure about this?" "More sure than I've ever been." He counted out $3,200 in cash. I folded the bills carefully, tucked them in my purse, and walked straight to Morrison's department store. Sarah protested when I returned with bags of clothes, shoes, school supplies for Oliver. Mom, you can't. I absolutely can. I held up a small blue backpack with dinosaurs on it. Every kid deserves a first day of school backpack. Well, that's non-negotiable. Oliver's eyes lit up in a way that made every soiled memory worth it. The next day, I walked Sarah to the Morning Brew Cafe on Broad Street. Martha Jenkins, who I'd known since forever, stood behind the counter, her silver hair in its customary bun. Martha, this is my daughter Sarah. I squeezed Sarah's hand. She needs work, and you need help with that kitchen of yours. Martha studied Sarah with eyes that missed nothing. The nervousness, the hope, the fear. Then she smiled. Can you start tomorrow? Pays cash. Hours are flexible, and I've been drowning in orders since that food blogger found us. Sarah's voice cracked. Really? Really? Honey, 6 a.m. Don't be late. School proved more complicated. Mrs. Johnson, the elementary school principal, sat across from us in her office, lined with children's artwork, without proper documentation. It's difficult, Helen. Mrs. Johnson. I leaned forward. That little boy has been through more than any child should. He needs stability. He needs friends. He needs normal. She looked at Oliver, who sat quietly in the chair, too quiet for a 5-year-old. Something in her expression softened. I'll need documentation eventually, but we can do a provisional enrollment while you work it out. Welcome to Savannah Elementary, Oliver. Oliver's first smile in days made my heart ache. The weeks that followed established a rhythm. Sarah left before dawn for the cafe, exhausted but determined. Martha was kind, teaching her pastry techniques, never asking questions about the past. Oliver went to school, came home with finger paintings and stories about a boy named Tommy who shared his crackers. I watched them rebuild piece by fragile piece. But I also watched Sarah jump at sudden noises, watched her freeze when a man in a business suit walked past our house, watched her wake screaming from nightmares she wouldn't describe. One evening, as Oliver slept, I found Sarah on the porch, staring into the darkness. Talk to me, I said softly. I keep thinking he'll find us. Her voice was hollow. Michael doesn't lose, Mom. He doesn't give up control. Every day I wake up surprised we're still safe. I pulled her close. Let him come. He'll find out what a Southern mother is capable of. She laughed, but it was brittle. You don't know him. He's calculating. Patient. He'll wait until we feel safe, then we'll face him together. But her words haunted me as I lay awake that night. I'd seen Michael exactly once, at their wedding. Charming, confident, the kind of man who commanded rooms. How did you fight someone like that? 3 weeks after she started, Sarah brought home her first paycheck, $240 in cash. She stared at it like it was $1 million, tears streaming down her face. It's mine, she whispered. I earned this. Me. I hugged her, feeling her ribs still too prominent, but there was strength in her now, growing daily like a plant reaching for sun. That Thursday, I lit candles at church as always, but this time, I didn't pray for my absent family. I prayed for strength for what was coming, because I could feel it approaching, the way you feel a storm before the first drop falls. Sarah felt it too. I saw it in the way she checked the locks 3 times before bed, in how she positioned herself between Oliver and the door. Always, we were preparing for battle without saying it aloud. And on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, as I hung laundry in the backyard, I heard it, the sound of an expensive engine stopping in front of my house. My hands stilled on the clothesline. A car door opened, closed with precision, footsteps on my walkway. Confident, unhurried, I turned slowly, and there he was. Michael Adams, in a gray suit that probably cost more than my mortgage, sunglasses catching the afternoon light. That smile I remembered from the wedding photos. Hello, Helen, he said pleasantly. I believe you have something that belongs to me. The clothespin fell from my hand, hitting the grass with a soft sound that seemed impossibly loud. You're not welcome here, Michael. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Leave, now. He removed his sunglasses, revealing those blue eyes Sarah had once called beautiful. Now I saw what she'd learned to see, the coldness behind the charm, like ice beneath clear water. That's not very hospitable, Helen. He moved closer, uninvited, unwanted, especially when I've come such a long way to retrieve my family. They are not your family. Not anymore. Legally speaking. He smiled, that lawyer smile. Sarah is still my wife. Oliver is my son. I have rights. My heart hammered against my ribs. But I stepped between him and my back door. You lost your rights when you abandoned them, when you starved them, When I what? His voice dropped. Dangerous now. When I provided a home in Paris, opportunities. Sarah always had a flair for drama. Helen, surely you realize she's exaggerating. The screen door creaked. Sarah stood there, frozen, her face chalk white. She held a dish towel, her knuckles bloodless around it. Michael's expression changed, softened into something that might have fooled me once. Sarah, darling, look at you. Get out. Her voice shook. Get away from us. Is that any way to greet your husband? He took a step toward her. I moved with him, blocking. I've been worried sick. You disappeared with our son. No word. Nothing. Do you know what that did to me? What that did to you? Sarah's voice cracked. You left us with nothing. Where is Oliver? Michael's eyes swept past us, searching the windows. Where's my son? He's not here. The lie came automatically. But Oliver appeared then, small and curious, drawn by the raised voices. He stood behind Sarah, peering around her legs at the stranger in the expensive suit. Michael's face transformed. Oliver, son, come here. Oliver shrank back, pressing against Sarah's leg. He didn't remember this man. Or perhaps he remembered too well. Come to Daddy, Oliver. Michael's voice had an edge now. Control slipping. Don't be rude. He doesn't know you, Sarah said, pulling Oliver behind her completely. You were never there. You were never a father. I'm rectifying that now. Michael straightened his cuffs. A gesture so casual it was terrifying. I'm here to bring you both home. We'll work through this little episode of yours. Get you some help. Help! I stepped forward. She doesn't need help. She needs you gone. He looked at me then. Really looked. And I saw the contempt he'd hidden for years. With all due respect, Helen, this is between me and my wife. You're interfering in a marriage. Perhaps if you hadn't coddled her, filled her head with, get off my property. Or what? You'll call the police. He pulled out his phone, scrolled casually. I have a lawyer, Helen, one of the best in Georgia. I have documentation of Sarah's mental instability, her kidnapping of our son across international borders. I have resources you can't imagine. I don't care. You should. He pocketed his phone, smiled again, that terrible empty smile. Because I'm filing for custody, and I will win. Courts favor fathers with means. With stability, what can Sarah offer? A job washing dishes, this crumbling house. Meanwhile, I can provide the best schools, healthcare, opportunities. Sarah made a sound. Small, broken. Oliver started crying, sensing the danger he couldn't name. I'll give you 3 days to come to your senses, Michael said, backing toward his car. 3 days to return voluntarily. Work this out privately. After that, this becomes legal, public, messy. He paused at the driver's door. You can't hide from me, Sarah. I found you once. I'll find you anywhere. Oliver is mine. The car door slammed. The engine purred to life. Smooth, expensive, powerful. We watched him drive away, his brake lights glowing red at the corner before disappearing. Sarah collapsed, actually collapsed, legs giving out. Oliver tumbling with her as she sank to the porch. She pulled him close, rocking, making sounds that weren't quite words. I knelt beside them, wrapped my arms around them both and felt them shaking. Mom. Sarah's eyes met mine, wild with terror. He means it. He'll take Oliver. He has money, lawyers, everything. We can't fight him. We should run. We should... No. My voice was firm. No more running. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I cupped her face in my hands. He's a bully, a predator, and predators rely on fear. But baby, you're not alone anymore. We'll fight him. The right way, the legal way. We can't afford. We'll find a way. I looked at Oliver, his little face buried in Sarah's shoulder. He's not taking this child, not while I'm breathing. But even as I said it, as I helped them inside and locked every door and window, doubt clawed at me. Michael had resources, power. The system often favored men like him. What did we have? That night I called Father Thomas. I need help, I said. The kind I can't get from prayer alone. Tell me everything, he said. So I did. And he said 4 words that changed everything. I know someone who can help. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table with Robert's old Bible, not reading, just holding it like an anchor. Sunday morning came with fog thick as cotton. At church, I could barely focus on Father Thomas's sermon. Afterward, he pulled me aside into his small office that smelled of old books and candle wax. "Helen, there's someone you need to meet," he scribbled on a post-it note. "Linda Reyes, she's a social worker with the county, specializes in domestic violence and family displacement cases. She's tough, compassionate, and she doesn't let abusers win." The phone number felt heavy in my hand. Monday morning I called. Linda arrived that afternoon, driving a sensible sedan that had seen better days. She was maybe 45, Latina, with kind eyes and a handshake that meant business. Sarah sat on the couch, Oliver beside her, looking like she might bolt. "Sarah, I'm not here to judge you," Linda said, settling into the armchair with a worn notebook. "I'm here to help, but I need to know everything, no matter how small, how embarrassing, how hard to say, everything." So Sarah talked. For 2 hours, she talked. Linda took notes, asked gentle but pointed questions, observed Oliver's behavior, how he startled at loud sounds, how he positioned himself between his mother and strangers. When Sarah finished, her voice was raw. Linda set down her pen. "Sarah, what you've described is textbook coercive control. Isolation, financial abuse, psychological manipulation. Michael hit every mark of an abuser. The international aspect complicates things, but it also might work in our favor." "How, I asked. "If we can prove he's been investigated for financial crimes in France, it undermines his stable provider image." She tapped her notebook. "But we need a lawyer, a good one." Sarah laughed bitterly. "We can't afford—" "You can't afford not to." Linda pulled out her phone. "I know someone, Daniel Miller. He works with a non-profit legal clinic. Takes cases pro bono for families in crisis. Lost his mother to domestic violence when he was 12. He does this work because he couldn't save her." An hour later, Daniel Miller sat in my living room. He was younger than I expected. Mid-30s, sandy hair slightly disheveled, glasses, a worn briefcase covered in coffee stains. He looked tired, like someone who worked too much and slept too little. But his eyes were sharp, intelligent, and when he looked at Sarah, I saw understanding, not pity. "Tell me about Michael," he said simply. Sarah went through it again. This time, Daniel interrupted with specific questions. Dates, locations, witnesses, any documentation she might have when she mentioned Roberto. He leaned forward. "This Roberto, he saw the conditions, the apartment, he can verify your story." "Yes, but he's in Paris. I don't even know if—" "We'll find him." Daniel made a note. "Sarah, I'm going to be honest. Custody cases are hard, and international ones are harder. Michael will paint you as unstable, claim you kidnapped Oliver. He'll use his resources to look like the responsible parent." Sarah's face crumbled. "So we can't win." "I didn't say that." Daniel's voice was firm. "I said it's hard, but Michael made mistakes. He left you without support. That's abandonment. He maintained a separate residence with another woman. Potential adultery and fraud. If he's being investigated for financial crimes in France, that's leverage. And most importantly, you're here. You're working, you're providing stability. Courts care about what's best for the child, not who has the biggest bank account." "What do we do first?" I asked. Daniel pulled out a legal pad, started making lists. "First, we file a police report about Michael's threats. Second, we request a temporary restraining order. Third, we start gathering evidence. Any photos, emails, financial records Sarah might have. Fourth, we locate Roberto and see if he'll testify. Fifth, and this is crucial, we investigate Michael if he's running from the French authorities. We need to know." Over the next hour, we built a strategy. Linda would document Sarah's mental health journey, showing she was recovering, not unstable. I would provide character witnesses from our community. Daniel would dig into Michael's background, looking for cracks in his perfect facade. "This will get ugly," Daniel warned as he packed up. "Michael will retaliate. He'll make threats, spread rumors, try to intimidate you. Can you handle that?" Sarah looked at Oliver, asleep on the couch with his dinosaur backpack as a pillow. "I can handle anything if it means keeping him safe." Daniel nodded. "Then we fight. I'll file preliminary paperwork tomorrow. expect Michael to escalate once he's served. After they left, I found Sarah on the porch again, that place she went when fear got too heavy. "I'm scared, Mom," she whispered. "Me too. What if we lose? What if the court gives Oliver to him?" I took her hand. "Then we appeal. We fight again. We keep fighting until we win, because that's what mothers do." She leaned against me, and we watched the sunset paint the sky, orange and pink, beautiful and temporary, like peace. That night, I added a prayer to my routine. "God, send us strength, send us justice, and please, let Roberto be findable." 2 days later, Daniel called. "Helen, you're not going to believe this. We found Roberto, and he's not just willing to testify. He took photos. He documented everything. For the first time since that night on the street, I felt something dangerous bloom in my chest. Hope. Daniel worked like a man possessed. 2 weeks after our first meeting, he arrived with a cardboard box full of documents and a grim expression that somehow looked triumphant. "You're going to want to sit down," he said. We gathered around my dining table. Me, Sarah, Linda. Daniel spread papers across the surface, like evidence at a crime scene. "Michael Adams isn't just a bad husband, he's a criminal." He pulled out a thick folder. "Carlos Mendoza, a private investigator I use, has contacts in Paris. Michael's international company was a pyramid scheme. He defrauded investors of 4.8 million euros when it collapsed in 2023. He disappeared before French authorities could arrest him." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. I knew he was lying about work, but this... "It gets better." Daniel slid over another document, this one in French with official-looking stamps. "There's an active international warrant for his arrest. He's not just a deadbeat, Dad. He's a fugitive." "Can we use this?" I asked, barely breathing. "Absolutely, but there's more." Daniel pulled out his phone, played a video call recording. A woman appeared on screen. Beautiful. French, clearly upset. "This is Isabelle Rousseau. Carlos tracked her down. Turns out she's Michael's current companion, and she had no idea about you." Sarah, on screen, Isabel spoke in accented English. "He told me his wife was dead, that he was raising his son alone. I believed him. My family invested in his company. We lost everything when I discovered the truth. I wanted to help." She held up her own phone, showed messages between her and Michael. Daniel read them aloud. "The Sarah problem needs resolving. Once I have Oliver, I can leverage custody for money from her mother. Old women always have savings." I felt sick. Sarah looked like she might faint. "He never wanted Oliver," Sarah whispered. "He just wanted to hurt me, to win." "Exactly." Daniel's jaw was tight. "But Isabel is willing to testify. She's furious. Michael used her, stole from her family. She wants revenge as much as justice." Linda had been quiet, making notes. Now she spoke up. "I contacted Roberto Martinez in Paris. He's agreed to video testimony, Helen. He took photos, dozens of them. The apartment where Sarah lived, receipts showing she received barely any money, even photos of Oliver in clothes with holes." She spread them across the table. My heart broke, seeing my grandson in those images. Too thin, wearing shoes held together with tape, sitting on a bare mattress in a room with peeling paint. How could anyone? I couldn't finish. "Because Michael is a narcissist," Linda said flatly. "He views people as possessions, tools to be used. Sarah's only value was as his wife on paper, someone to blame, to control, to discard when inconvenient." Daniel gathered the documents. "This changes everything. Michael wanted to play the successful businessman seeking custody of his son. Now we paint the real picture. International criminal using custody as leverage with multiple witnesses to verify years of abuse and neglect." "When does this go before a judge?" Sarah asked. Michael's lawyer filed for an emergency custody hearing. "It's set for 3 weeks from today." Daniel looked at each of us. "But Michael doesn't know what we have. He thinks we're defenseless. That's our advantage." The next day, Michael's lawyer, James Harrington, from the fanciest firm in Savannah, sent papers, formal custody petition painting Sarah as mentally unstable, claiming she kidnapped Oliver from France, requesting immediate temporary custody pending full hearing. Sarah read it, hands shaking. "He's saying I'm dangerous, that I have a history of erratic behavior, that I'm homeless. All lies we can disprove, Daniel said. Martha's written a statement about your excellent work at the cafe. Father Thomas, Mrs. Johnson, your neighbors, everyone's providing character references. Linda has your therapy records showing you're recovering from trauma, not experiencing instability. But the hardest part was explaining everything to Oliver. He sat between Sarah and me on the couch, his small face serious beyond his years. Baby, do you remember the man who came here? Sarah asked gently. Oliver nodded, something fearful crossing his features. He says he's your father and he wants you to come live with him. I don't want to. Oliver's voice was small. I want to stay with you and Grandma. I know, sweetheart. We're going to talk to a judge, like a very important teacher, and tell them why you should stay here. But they might ask you questions. Would that be okay? Oliver thought about it. Will you be there? Always. Dr. Marcus Reed, a child psychologist Linda recommended, evaluated Oliver over 3 sessions. His report was damning for Michael. Child shows classic signs of early trauma and neglect. Current environment with mother and grandmother shows marked improvement in behavior, emotional regulation, and social development. Removing him would be psychologically devastating. 3 weeks felt simultaneously too fast and impossibly slow. Sarah couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I watched her lose weight. She couldn't afford to lose. Saw her jump at every car, every phone call. Michael, meanwhile, made himself visible. He attended service at our church, actually sat 3 pews behind us, smiling benignly. He stayed at the Savannah Grand Hotel, drove a new BMW, dressed impeccably, playing the part of concerned father for anyone watching. The night before the hearing, I found Sarah in Oliver's room watching him sleep. What if I'm not enough? She whispered. What if the judge looks at me? No degree, no money, no impressive job, and gives him to Michael anyway. I wrapped my arm around her. Then that judge is a fool. But I don't think they will be, because we have something Michael doesn't. What's that? The truth? And a whole community standing behind it. Daniel's office was cramped, cluttered with case files and cold coffee cups. We'd been there for 3 hours, and he showed no signs of stopping. Again? Sarah, when Harrington asks why you didn't report the abuse to authorities, what do you say? Sarah took a breath. We'd done this 20 times already. I was isolated in a foreign country, without documents or money. Michael controlled everything, including my ability to seek help. I was afraid that reporting him would result in losing Oliver completely. Good. And when he implies you're lying for financial gain, I'm not seeking financial support from Michael. I only want to protect my son. Better, Daniel made notes. He's going to try to rattle you. That's his job. Stay calm. Maintain eye contact. Don't let him see fear. We practiced for days. Mock cross-examinations where Daniel played the hostile lawyer, throwing accusations that made me want to slap him. But slowly, Sarah learned to deflect, to answer with facts instead of emotions, to breathe through panic. Linda worked on documentation, medical records showing Sarah's malnutrition when she'd arrived, school reports showing Oliver's improvement, testimonials from everyone who'd witnessed the transformation. Martha, Father Thomas, neighbors, even Tommy's mother, who wrote about how her son's friendship with Oliver had helped both boys. Meanwhile, Michael played his own game. He showed up at Morning Brew one morning, ordering coffee like any customer. Martha later told me he'd ask questions, casual, friendly, about Sarah's work, her stability, her mood, fishing for ammunition. He's trying to find witnesses against you, Daniel warned. Anyone who's seen you upset, struggling, anything he can twist. Sarah became hyper-vigilant, controlling every emotion in public, smiling through exhaustion, never complaining even when I could see her hands shaking. The community rallied. Mrs. Johnson organized a petition signed by 47 families from Oliver's school. Neighbors I barely knew stopped by with casseroles and words of encouragement. Even Mr. Rosenberg, who'd bought my jewelry, contributed to a small fund for legal expenses. We take care of our own, he said simply. But Michael had resources we couldn't match. His lawyer, James Harrington, had a reputation for destroying opponents. Wealthy clients won custody battles they shouldn't have won because Harrington knew how to manipulate narratives, exploit technicalities, intimidate witnesses. He's going to make me look crazy, Sarah said after one particularly brutal practice session. Daniel removed his glasses, rubbed his eyes. Sarah, I need you to understand something. What you survived, that wasn't your fault. The shame you feel, the fear, the trauma, none of it makes you a bad mother. It makes you a survivor, and that's the story we tell. The weekend before the hearing, Dr. Patricia Wong, Sarah's therapist, spent 4 hours with us preparing Sarah for the emotional toll of testimony. When you tell your story, they'll see your pain. Don't hide it. Pain isn't weakness. It's proof. Doctor. Wong squeezed Sarah's hand. You're not the broken girl Michael created. You're the woman who escaped him. Remember that difference. Dr. Reed's evaluation of Oliver was our strongest weapon. I read it again the night before court. This child has suffered early developmental trauma, consistent with neglect. However, current assessments show dramatic positive changes in behavior, emotional expression, and social integration. The maternal bond is strong and healthy. Removing him from his current environment would constitute severe psychological harm. Carlos Mendoza came through with more evidence from France. Bank records showing Michael had transferred hundreds of thousands of euros to offshore accounts before his company collapsed. Email chains where he discussed eliminating loose ends, including the American wife problem. Roberto's video testimony arrived the day before trial. Watching it broke my heart. This gentleman described finding Sarah crying in an office building at 2 a.m. Oliver asleep in a stroller because they had nowhere else to go. He'd brought them blankets, food, hope when they had none. She is good woman, Roberto said in accented English. Good mother, she suffer very much. The man, Michael, he is devil. Simple words, but true. That final night, Sarah couldn't stay still. She paced, checked on Oliver a dozen times, rewrote her statement over and over. I'm going to fail, she whispered at midnight. When we sat in the kitchen with chamomile tea, neither of us drank. I'll get on that stand and freeze. Harrington will tear me apart, and the judge will see exactly what Michael wants them to see. A broken, unstable woman who can't take care of her child. I reached across the table, gripped her hands hard enough to hurt. Listen to me. You escaped a man who spent 5 years trying to destroy you. You survived homelessness with a child. You rebuilt your life from nothing. That's not weakness, Sarah. That's warrior-level strength, and tomorrow, you show them that. She met my eyes, tears streaming. What if it's not enough? Then we appeal. We fight again. We keep fighting until Oliver is safe. I squeezed harder. But it will be enough, because truth is louder than money, baby. Always has been. At 6 a.m., I woke to find Sarah already dressed. Staring at herself in the mirror, she wore a simple navy dress Martha had helped her choose. Modest, professional, the dress of a mother, not a victim. You look beautiful, I said. I look terrified. You look strong. Oliver woke, asking questions we'd prepared him for. Linda arrived at 8 to take him to the park, keeping him away from the courthouse. He hugged Sarah so tight she had to pry his arms loose. I love you, Mama, he said. I love you more than the sky, baby. At 8:30, we pulled into the courthouse parking lot. Daniel was already there, briefcase in hand, looking like he'd been up all night. Probably had been. Michael's BMW sat 3 spaces over as if on cue. He emerged, perfectly pressed suit, confident stride, Harrington beside him exuding expensive competence. Michael's eyes found Sarah. He smiled, that empty predatory smile, and raised his hand in a small wave. Mock friendliness, psychological warfare. Sarah's breath hitched. Her hand found mine, gripping so hard I felt bones shift. He can't hurt you anymore, I whispered fiercely. We've got him surrounded by truth. He just doesn't know it yet. Daniel joined us, standing between Sarah and Michael's line of sight. Ready? Sarah straightened her spine, lifted her chin. For a moment I saw the girl she'd been before Michael. Strong, determined, unbroken. Let's end this, she said. We walked into the courthouse together, through metal detectors and marble halls that echoed with footsteps and murmured conversations. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, an American flag, rows of benches that smelled like old furniture polish. Judge Margaret Thornton's nameplate sat on an empty bench. She'd decide our future. This stranger, who knew nothing about sleepless nights and fought for smiles. Michael and Harrington took their table. We took ours. The bailiff entered. All rise. The Honorable Judge Margaret Thornton presiding. An older woman entered. Steel gray hair, sharp eyes behind reading glasses. She sat, surveyed the room with an expression that gave nothing away. Be seated. Case number 2024, FC 1847, Adams versus Adams, petition for custody modification. My heart hammered so hard I thought everyone must hear it. Sarah's hand trembled in mine, and the battle began. Harrington stood first, all polished confidence and expensive cologne. Your Honor, my client, Michael Adams, is a devoted father who has been unjustly separated from his son by a series of impulsive, irrational decisions made by the child's mother. His voice was smooth, practiced. Mr. Adams is a successful international businessman who can provide educational opportunities, financial stability, and a structured environment that, frankly, the mother cannot match. He painted Michael as the victim, the dedicated father whose unstable wife had a mental breakdown and fled with their son. He presented bank statements showing Michael's supposed wealth, letters from business associates attesting to his character, photographs of Michael looking paternal and responsible. I watched the judge's face, unreadable. Then Harrington called Michael to the stand. Michael walked up with perfect posture, placed his hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. The irony burned. Mr. Adams, describe your relationship with your son. Oliver is everything to me. Michael's voice caught perfectly. A father's love, manufactured and delivered on cue. I've tried to be present despite demanding work. When Sarah took him, I was devastated. I've spent months searching, desperate to know my boy was safe. Lies delivered like gospel. And the allegations of abuse. Michael shook his head sadly. Sarah has always been emotionally fragile. I tried to help her, got her therapy, but she refused treatment. She confused my attempts to provide structure with control. I never hurt her, never would. He even produced tears, actually squeezed out tears that looked genuine unless you knew, as I did, that this man's heart was ice. What can you offer Oliver that his mother cannot? Everything. Michael leaned forward earnestly. Top schools, travel, opportunities, a father's guidance. I love Sarah, but she's unstable, unemployed essentially, living with her elderly mother. I can give Oliver the life he deserves. I wanted to scream. Sarah's nails dug into my palm. Then Daniel stood for cross-examination. He moved slowly, deliberately, like a predator circling prey. Mr. Adams, where exactly did Sarah live in Paris? Michael blinked. Our apartment. Address. A pause. Too long. It was in the suburbs. I can't recall the exact. 23 Rue de la Paix, correct? Daniel slid a document across. A 400-square-foot studio in one of Paris's poorest neighborhoods. Yet you maintained a separate residence at 15 Avenue Montaigne in the 8th arrondissement, one of the city's wealthiest areas. Why the discrepancy? That was my work. Your work residence where you lived with Isabelle Rousseau. Your girlfriend, while your wife and son lived in squalor. Harrington objected. Judge Thornton overruled. Michael's jaw tightened. Sarah preferred? Sarah preferred. Daniel's voice sharpened. Did she prefer no heat in winter? Prefer barely enough money for food, these photos? He displayed them on a screen. The courtroom gasped. Show conditions you subjected your family to while you lived here. He showed images of Michael's luxury apartment. That's out of context. Is it? Let's talk about financial support. How much did you send Sarah monthly? Adequate amounts? 0. Daniel held up bank records. 0 transfers for 24 consecutive months. So how exactly did you provide for your family? Michael's composure cracked. Sarah had access. To what? No bank account, no credit cards, no money. Mr. Adams, isn't it true you deliberately kept Sarah financially dependent and isolated? I provided a home, a prison. Daniel leaned forward. Roberto Martinez, who we'll hear from shortly, found Sarah and Oliver in his office building at 2 a.m. because they had nowhere else to go. Is that the home you provided? I don't know who this Roberto is. A witness. Unlike you. He has no reason to lie. Daniel switched tactics. Let's discuss your business. What exactly does your company do? international investments, pyramid schemes, actually. Daniel produced French legal documents, defrauded investors of 4.8 million euros. There's an active warrant for your arrest in France. Were you planning to mention that? The courtroom erupted. Harrington was on his feet, objecting. Judge Thornton banged her gavel, but her eyes were sharp on Michael. Is this true, Mr. Adams? Michael's mask slipped completely. Those charges are fabricated, political persecution. Really? Daniel presented emails. These communications between you and Isabelle Rousseau discuss dealing with the American wife problem and leveraging custody for financial gain from her family. Please explain. Michael went red. Those are private. They show premeditation, Your Honor. Mr. Adams isn't seeking custody out of love. He's seeking it as leverage, as revenge, as control. Daniel called Roberto via video. The simple maintenance worker told his story. Finding Sarah desperate, frightened, without resources, he showed his own photos, time-stamped and damning. The little boy, he cry all the time, Roberto said. Always hungry. The man, Michael. I see him maybe 3 times in 2 years. He never care, never visit, only yell at Sarah when he come. Then Dr. Reed testified about Oliver's trauma, his improvement, the catastrophic effect removal would cause. Then Linda, methodical and professional, presented Sarah's recovery journey. Then Martha. She's the best employee I've ever had. Punctual, hard-working, devoted. She's rebuilding her life, brick by brick. The tide had turned completely. I could see it in Judge Thornton's expression, in how Harrington had stopped objecting, in how Michael sat rigid and furious. Finally, Daniel called Sarah. She walked to the stand on shaking legs, but when she sat and looked at the judge, something steadied in her. Mrs. Adams, tell us about your marriage. And Sarah spoke, not with drama or exaggeration, but with quiet, devastating truth. She described the isolation, the control, the fear. She showed medical records from when she'd arrived in the U.S., malnourished, anemic, traumatized. When Harrington tried to rattle her, she didn't break. Isn't it true you stole your son from his father? I rescued my son from neglect. You have no stable income. I have a job, a home, a family, and dignity more than I had with your client. Michael couldn't contain himself. He stood shouting, She's mine! Oliver is mine! I have rights! Judge Thornton's gavel cracked like thunder. Mr. Adams, sit down or be removed. But the damage was done. Everyone had seen the mask fall, seen the rage, the entitlement, the true Michael. I'll render my decision tomorrow at 2 p.m. Judge Thornton's voice was steel. Court adjourned. We filed out in silence. Michael stormed past, Harrington chasing him. Outside, Sarah collapsed against me, sobbing. You were perfect, I whispered. So perfect. But we wouldn't know if perfect was enough until tomorrow. The next 24 hours stretched into eternity. Sarah paced like a caged animal, unable to eat, barely sleeping. I found her at 3 a.m. standing in Oliver's doorway, watching him breathe. If she takes him away, her voice broke. I won't survive it, Mom. She won't. I pulled her close, praying I wasn't lying. She saw the truth yesterday. She saw him. Morning came too fast and too slow. We went through motions. Breakfast that Sarah couldn't swallow. Getting dressed. Pretending normalcy for Oliver, who sensed everything. At 10 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Parker, this is Isabelle Rousseau, the French woman, Michael's girlfriend. I put her on speaker. I watch video of court proceedings online, she said, accent thick with emotion. I must tell you, I did not know Michael. He tell me Sarah abandoned Oliver, that she was, how you say, crazy woman. He lie about everything. We know, Sarah said softly. No, you don't know everything. Listen, if Michael get custody, he planned to use Oliver as, how you say, leverage to get money from Isabel family, from you, from anyone. He tell me this when drunk. He say, child is better than stocks, always valuable to someone. He not want Oliver, he want power. Sarah's face went white. Isabel continued. I sent email to your lawyer this morning. My testimony, messages, everything. Michael steal from my family too. He deserved to lose everything. I am sorry I not helped sooner. After she hung up, Sarah stared at the phone. He really is a monster. But we're about to slay him, I said, more confident than I felt. At 1:30 p.m., we returned to the courthouse. Linda had Oliver at the aquarium, distracted by dolphins and ignorant of the knife's edge his future balanced on. The courtroom felt different today, heavier, charged. Michael sat with Harrington, his confidence from yesterday replaced by rigid tension. He didn't look at us. Daniel arrived with his laptop. Isabel's email already forwarded to the court. "This helps," he said. "A lot." At exactly 2 p.m., Judge Thornton entered. We stood, sat, and I realized I was holding my breath. I've reviewed all testimony, evidence, and submissions carefully. Her voice was measured, clinical. Custody cases are among the most difficult decisions a court makes because the stakes, a child's well-being, are immeasurable. "Please," I prayed, "please." Mr. Adams presented himself as a concerned father with resources to provide for his son. However, evidence paints a starkly different picture. She looked directly at Michael. The financial records, eyewitness testimonies, and photographic evidence demonstrate a pattern of willful neglect, psychological abuse, and manipulation that cannot be ignored. Michael's jaw clenched. Furthermore, the revelation of criminal investigations in France, coupled with Miss Rousseau's testimony received this morning regarding Mr. Adams's stated intentions to use custody as financial leverage, demonstrates that this petition is not motivated by paternal love, but by control and revenge. Sarah gripped my hand so tight I lost feeling in my fingers. Miss Adams, conversely, has demonstrated remarkable resilience despite severe trauma. She has secured employment, stable housing, and is actively engaged in therapy. Most importantly, Oliver has shown significant developmental improvement under her care. Dr. Reed's evaluation clearly indicates that removing the child from his current environment would cause severe psychological harm. Judge Thornton paused, and the silence was deafening. Therefore, I am ruling as follows. Full legal and physical custody of Oliver Adams is hereby granted to Sarah Parker Adams. The world stopped, started again. Sarah made a sound, half sob, half gasp. Furthermore, the judge continued, her voice hardening, I am issuing a restraining order, Mr. Adams is to maintain a minimum distance of 500 yards from Sarah Adams, Oliver Adams, and their place of residence. Visitation rights are denied pending completion of a comprehensive psychological evaluation and domestic violence rehabilitation program, which Mr. Adams must complete at his own expense before any future custody petition will be considered. The gavel came down with finality. Additionally, I am recommending this case be forwarded to federal authorities regarding potential international parental kidnapping charges and to coordinate with French authorities regarding outstanding warrants. This court is adjourned. Michael exploded to his feet. This is insane. You can't. I just did, Mr. Adams' bailiff. If he continues, remove him. Michael looked at Sarah with pure hatred, his face contorted. For a moment I thought he might lunge at us, but Harrington grabbed his arm, whispered urgently, and physically pulled him toward the exit. Michael yanked free, straightened his jacket, and walked out with what dignity he could salvage. His footsteps echoed in the silent courtroom. Then Sarah broke. She collapsed into my arms, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. Daniel was grinning, actually grinning, and Linda had tears streaming down her face. You won, I whispered into Sarah's hair. Baby, you won. He can't hurt you anymore. You're free. Oliver. She could barely speak. Oliver is safe. He's really safe. Really, truly, finally safe. Outside, Martha waited with Father Thomas, neighbors from our street. Even Mrs. Johnson from Oliver's school. When they saw our faces, they erupted in cheers. Linda brought Oliver from the aquarium. He ran to Sarah, who swept him up, holding him like she'd never let go. Mama, why are you crying? Happy tears, baby. The happiest tears in the whole world. Can we go home? Yes. Sarah kissed his forehead, his cheeks, his nose. We can go home. We're never leaving again. That night, our house filled with people and laughter and food, brought by neighbors who celebrated victory like it was their own. Because in a way, it was proof that community could stand against power, that truth could defeat money. I found Sarah on the porch around midnight, Oliver asleep against her shoulder. I keep waiting to wake up, she said, to find out this was a dream. It's real. I sat beside her. You're free. Oliver is yours. Michael is gone. Forever. Forever. She looked at her sleeping son, stroked his hair. I'm going to give him everything. Mom, everything Michael tried to take from us. Safety, love, joy, everything. I know you will. We sat in comfortable silence, watching stars emerge in the clear Georgia sky. Somewhere in the distance, Michael Adams was probably scheming, raging, blaming everyone but himself. But he was gone from our lives, and we were finally, beautifully, impossibly free. 6 months later, spring arrived in Savannah like a promise kept. I stood in my garden, pruning roses that had bloomed more vibrantly than they had in years, and watched Sarah through the kitchen window. She was teaching Oliver how to measure flour, both of them covered in white dust. Laughing at some shared joke, the transformation was almost miraculous. Sarah had gained healthy weight. Her hair shone, but more than that, her eyes were alive again. She smiled easily, laughed without looking over her shoulder, existed without fear. The nightmares had faded to occasional whispers rather than nightly screams. Oliver thrived. He'd made the school soccer team, had 4 best friends instead of 1, brought home report cards that made us cry with pride. Dr. Reed had signed off on his therapy, declaring him a resilient, well-adjusted child with a strong support system. The words we'd fought for, made real. One afternoon in April, Daniel appeared at our door with an unusual expression, nervous excitement. Sarah, can we talk? They sat on the porch while I pretended not to eavesdrop from the kitchen. You remember when I said you had incredible talent for baking? Daniel's words came fast, anxious. Well, I've been thinking. I have some savings, not much, but enough. What if we open something together? A bakery, maybe. You'd handle the creative side. Recipes, baking, all that. I'd manage the business end. Legal stuff. Accounting, the boring parts. Sarah was quiet so long I peeked out. She was crying. Sarah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Yes. She laughed through tears. Yes, absolutely yes, Daniel. Are you serious? Completely. I think you could build something beautiful, and I'd be honored to help. What followed was a whirlwind of activity that consumed our household. In the best way, Martha offered advice and family recipes. Linda helped navigate small business loans and grants for entrepreneurs recovering from domestic violence. Father Thomas knew a commercial real estate agent who showed us properties. We found it on a Tuesday, a corner shop in Savannah's historic district with big windows, exposed brick, and a kitchen in back that just needed love and cleaning. The landlord, a widow named Mrs. Chen, listened to Sarah's story and cut the rent by 1/3. My sister escaped bad marriage too, she said simply. I help. We spent 8 weeks transforming that space. Sarah and Daniel painted walls a warm, buttery yellow. Oliver contributed crayon drawings that we framed and hung. I sewed curtains and tablecloths in cheerful prints. Neighbors donated mismatched vintage chairs that gave the place character. The name came to Sarah one night. Sweet Beginnings. Because that's what this is, she said. Not just for the bakery, for all of us. Daniel commissioned Oliver to design the logo, a sun rising over a cupcake, childish and perfect. We had it printed on everything, napkins, boxes, the sign that hung above the door. During those weeks, I watched Sarah and Daniel fall in love, though neither seemed to realize it yet. The way he brought her coffee without asking, how she saved him the first muffin of every batch, the lingering glances, the comfortable silences, the unconscious gravitation toward each other in crowded rooms. One evening, I found them sitting on the bakery's front steps, paint splattered and exhausted. My mom, Daniel said quietly, died when I was 12. My father, he was like Michael, controlling, violent. I couldn't save her. His voice cracked. But helping you, Sarah, helping Oliver, it's like I finally did something right. Like maybe her suffering wasn't completely meaningless if it led me here. To this, Sarah took his hand. You gave me back my life, Daniel, and Oliver's future. That's not just something right. That's everything. They sat there, hands clasped, and I turned away to give them privacy. My heart full. The grand opening fell on a Saturday in May. We'd advertised in the local paper, distributed flyers, and prayed people would come. They came. By 7 a.m., a line stretched down the block. Martha worked the register. Linda managed seating. Daniel handled orders. Sarah commanded the kitchen like a general. Oliver her enthusiastic assistant who mostly ate more than he helped. I worked the floor, pouring coffee, clearing tables, watching Sarah's dream become solid and real. Mayor Richards came, tried a blueberry scone, and declared it the best in Georgia. Mrs. Johnson brought Oliver's entire class. Even Mr. Rosenberg showed up, buying a dozen cookies and leaving a $50 tip. By closing time, we were sold out, exhausted and deliriously happy. That evening we gathered in my backyard. Sarah, Daniel, Oliver, Linda, Martha, Father Thomas. We shared wine, juice for Oliver, and leftover pastries, telling stories and laughing until our sides ached. Speech, Martha called. Sarah stood, Oliver on her hip, and looked at each of us. A year ago, I was sleeping on a street corner, believing I had nothing. Now I have everything that matters. Family, friends, purpose, hope. This bakery isn't just a business. It's proof that endings can become beginnings, that love is stronger than fear, that we're stronger together than any of us are alone. She looked at me, eyes shining. Mom, you saved my life. Literally, you found me, took us in, fought for us when I couldn't fight anymore. This, she gestured at everything, exists because you loved me enough to not give up. I couldn't speak past the lump in my throat. To Helen, Daniel raised his glass, the fiercest grandmother in Georgia. To new beginnings, Sarah added. To family, Oliver piped up, making everyone laugh. We toasted, and as the sun set orange and gold over Savannah, I thought about Robert, how he would have loved this moment. Our daughter restored, our grandson safe, our family expanded by love rather than blood. That night, after everyone left, I found Sarah sitting on the porch swing, the place where so many conversations had happened. You okay? I asked. Better than okay. She patted the seat beside her. Mom, I never thanked you properly, for believing me, for fighting when I couldn't, for... Stop! I pulled her close. That's what mothers do. We show up. We fight. We never, ever give up on our children. I won't forget. Good. Because someday, Oliver might need the same thing, and you'll know exactly what to do. We rocked gently, the chains creaking, cicadas singing their evening songs. Somewhere out there, Michael Adams existed, probably bitter, probably plotting his next scheme. But he was just a shadow now, powerless and distant. Here, in our circle of light, we were safe, we were loved, we were home, and every morning, the sun would rise over sweet beginnings, bringing customers seeking more than pastries, seeking the hope that broken things can be made whole, that darkness eventually yields to light, that love in the end always wins.